New York City's skyline glimmered like a treasure chest under the golden sunset. At the top of it all, Donald Trump, billionaire tycoon and media mogul, believed he ruled not just the city, but the world. At 75, his wealth was legendary, his power unchallenged, and his confidence untouchable. Hey guys, before we get into today's shocking story, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Today, a millionaire thought he could humiliate a waitress, but what she did next shocked everyone. Comment your country below, and trust me, the real shocking part is coming. You have to see it. He had built an empire of towers, casinos, and influence, and he was used to people bending to his will. Tonight, at a lavish gala in one of his Manhattan penthouses, Donald strode through the crowd in a crisp, tailored suit. Every handshake, every smile, every camera flash reminded him he was untouchable. But there was one presence that made him pause. A young, confident waitress moving through the crowd with grace, carrying trays with poise. Her name was Sophia Martin. Unlike the usual sycophants who surrounded Trump, she had something different, a spark, a quiet defiance in her gaze. And Donald noticed. He stopped mid-step, his piercing eyes locking onto hers. "You," he said in a voice smooth yet commanding, "come here." Sophia approached cautiously, aware that this was no ordinary encounter. Trump's reputation preceded him, powerful, wealthy, arrogant. She had served dozens of billionaires before, but there was something about him that demanded respect and careful strategy. "You have spirit," Donald said, leaning slightly closer, his face stern but curious. "Most people here are predictable." Sophia forced a polite smile, hiding the flicker of defiance burning inside. She knew men like him, men who thought wealth equaled control, but she also noticed the cracks, overconfidence, entitlement, and arrogance. Donald Trump believed he had found a challenge he could dominate, a woman he could mold into admiration or submission. But he had no idea that Sophia had already begun weaving a web of observation and subtle strategy. This was no ordinary encounter. This was the first move in a game he could not yet see, a game that would eventually strip him of the one thing he never expected to lose: control. The night had only begun, but the tension was already electric. Trump's confidence, wealth, and power, everything that had defined him, would soon collide with Sophia's patience, intelligence, and calculated defiance. Donald Trump couldn't get her out of his mind. Every glance Sophia gave him replayed in his head. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen, confident, calm, and utterly untouchable. He was used to power, influence, and people bending to his will, but Sophia resisted every unspoken command. She wasn't just another name on his list of flattery or submission. Determined to own her attention, Donald invited her to private events under the guise of opportunities and exclusive gatherings. He assumed the glitter, the wealth, the fame, and the power would impress her, but Sophia observed everything carefully: the arrogance, the entitlement, and the flaws that no money could hide. One evening, on the terrace of Trump Tower, the city lights sparkling below, Donald cornered her. "You're different," he said, leaning closer, his face showing curiosity mixed with command. "Most people I meet, they fall in line. You're not like that." Sophia felt her pulse quicken, but remained composed. "I'm not here to impress you," she said softly, her eyes unwavering. She knew this was the perfect moment to start her strategy, calm, precise, invisible to him. Donald underestimated her. He thought wealth, influence, and charm could bend anyone to his will. But Sophia had already begun collecting information, noting his personal habits, arrogance, and blind spots. She watched how he treated employees, how he flaunted power, and even how his closest associates feared him. Every detail was a piece of a puzzle she would later use against him. Meanwhile, Donald grew obsessed. He tried to dominate conversations, control her interactions, and flaunt his status, believing she would eventually yield. But the more he pushed, the more she stepped back, careful, strategic, and calculating. She smiled, nodded, and obeyed only enough to make him believe he was in control. Sophia's plan was slow, intelligent, and methodical. No rash moves. Every action she took, every subtle interaction was designed to weaken him psychologically, erode his confidence, and prepare for the perfect moment of revenge. By the end of this phase, Donald Trump thought he was winning. He thought he had captivated her attention and was on the verge of owning her loyalty and admiration. But in reality, Sophia had already flipped the board, moving pieces he couldn't even see and planting the seeds of his eventual downfall. The tension between them was electric, a silent battle of power and intelligence, and Donald, blinded by his wealth and ego, had no idea that the woman he underestimated would one day destroy everything he thought he controlled. Sophia had begun executing her plan, and every move was deliberate, calculated, and precise. She knew Donald Trump underestimated her, and that arrogance would become her weapon. She started gathering confidential documents, insider information, and evidence of mismanaged deals, arrogance-driven mistakes, and hidden personal flaws. Every detail was stored carefully, every flaw memorized. Then, she strategically leaked this information to investigative journalists, ensuring the story would hit the media with maximum impact. Within days, whispers and rumors spread throughout the business world. Investors questioned his judgment, partners doubted his decisions, and the media began questioning the infallible billionaire. Trump, initially baffled, could not understand how a waitress, someone he had dismissed as ordinary, was destabilizing his empire. His ego, always untouchable, was slowly cracking. He had always believed that wealth and power guaranteed loyalty and obedience, but Sophia's intelligence and patience were dismantling that illusion step by step. The crescendo came during a lavish gala. Cameras flashed as Sophia stood calmly, confident and composed, while the crowd watched in awe. On the large screens, leaked videos and documents played, revealing the billionaire's arrogance, manipulations, and mistakes. Shock rippled through the room. Donald stormed toward her, furious, but she remained perfectly still, calm, and untouchable. "You thought you controlled me," she said, her voice steady and cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "But I've already controlled everything you thought was untouchable." The billionaire froze. His carefully constructed public image shattered in front of everyone. Friends, business partners, and onlookers realized that the woman he dismissed as a mere waitress had outsmarted him at every turn. His obsession, arrogance, and overconfidence had been his downfall. Sophia's revenge wasn't impulsive, it was strategic, slow, and devastatingly effective. Each subtle move, every smile, every interaction, every calculated step had eroded his empire and reputation without him even realizing it. By the time he confronted her, he had lost control over everything that mattered most: influence, respect, and pride. The night ended with Trump humiliated publicly, his power shaken, and his ego exposed to the world. Meanwhile, Sophia's image rose with cinematic clarity, poised, victorious, and untouchable. Her revenge had been executed perfectly, proving that intelligence, strategy, and patience could triumph over wealth, arrogance, and power. The story of the waitress who outwitted a billionaire became legendary. In one evening, she had demonstrated that brains and courage could dismantle the mightiest empire, and that even the most powerful men are vulnerable when they underestimate the wrong person. The final blow came quietly but devastatingly. Investors withdrew. Legal investigations were announced. Longtime allies disappeared. Donald Trump's empire began collapsing in silence. On a private rooftop overlooking New York City, Sophia stood confident and composed. Behind her stood a shaken billionaire. "You thought money made you untouchable," she said. "You were wrong." He had no response. By morning, the world knew the truth. A billionaire brought down by arrogance, a woman who refused to be owned. Sophia walked away victorious. victorious, calm, dignified, and free.